To everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Things just went from bad to worse for Snow White, and it's shaping up to become one of the biggest bombs of all time.
Rachel Zegler has now officially become the punchline of Hollywood's latest joke after Disney made the dramatic decision to pull the plug on Snow White, yanking it from theaters following a months-long run that still failed to turn any meaningful profit. But the humiliation doesn't stop there. Industry whispers suggest Rachel has now landed on an unofficial do not cast list, with Hollywood insiders quietly declaring that her career may be circling the drain. So stick with me today as we unpack the full scope of this chaotic fallout and explore why Disney might be plotting revenge against the very actress who reportedly cost them a fortune. Folks, Disney's live-action Snow White remake has officially taken its final bow, and it's anything but a storybook ending. Rachel Zegler's portrayal of Snow White in the much-hyped reimagining of the iconic 1937 animated classic has been quietly phased out of theaters, marking the end of a film plagued by non-stop backlash, swirling controversies, and a box office track record that could only be described as a financial disaster. Despite Disney's massive push to rebrand the tale for a modern audience, the movie ultimately served as a cautionary tale in its own right, a story filled with political missteps, public relations blunders, and a once loyal fan base that clearly wasn't buying into the magic. Let's call it like it is. This project was cursed from the very beginning. Rachel Zegler's constant criticism of the original film, labeling it weird and dismissing it as lacking in empowerment, only alienated the very audience Disney was counting on. Her out-of-touch social media rants didn't help either, as fans quickly grew tired of the arrogance and perceived disrespect toward a beloved classic. Add to that the casting firestorm triggered by Peter Dinklage, who slammed the studio's approach to the Seven Dwarfs as hypocritical, and Disney's puzzling decision to swap out the dwarfs with CGI characters rather than actual actors, and you're staring straight into a PR disaster wearing Mickey Mouse gloves. When Snow White finally debuted in theaters on March 21st, audiences didn't just shrug, they actively tuned out. The film's opening weekend limped in at a mere $42.22 million at the domestic box office, a devastating return, especially when you consider the eye-popping $269 million production budget before a single cent was spent on marketing. That's right. Even before the studio began flooding the internet with trailers, rolling out glossy posters, or launching social media campaigns, this film was already a financial black hole.
The Walt Disney Company's live-action controversy-bedeviled Snow White opened in theaters with a sleepy $43 million in ticket sales, according to studio estimates on Sunday. With a budget above $250 million, Snow White had set out with higher ambitions, particularly since it returns Disney to its very origins. The 1937 original Snow White and Seven Dwarfs was the company's first animated feature and paid for its Burbank studio lot. So $43 million on a budget of $250 million. And keep in mind, as you always have to keep in mind with these kinds of numbers, that the production budget is not anywhere close to the full budget of the film. There's also a marketing budget, which is often the same as the production budget, if not more, which means that the total amount that Disney probably spent on this Snow White adaptation was probably closer to $500 million.
Despite being on the big screen for several months, Snow White never managed to bounce back from its disastrous debut. Ticket sales continued to tumble, reviews remained lukewarm at best, and the buzz Disney had hoped would transform the film into a contemporary classic never took shape. Instead, what the studio was left with was one of the most public and humiliating financial misfires in recent Disney history. And now, with the film being quietly phased out of theaters, it seems Rachel Zegler's career might be vanishing along with it. The numbers behind this cinematic train wreck are just as brutal as the public backlash. After barely 2.5 months in release, Snow White limped to the finish line, ending its theatrical run not with a bang, but a whimper. On its final day in theaters, June 5th, the film managed to rake in a pitiful $347 from just 25 North American locations. That's right, less than what the average family might spend on a weekly grocery run. The film's total domestic earnings? A mere $87.2 million. And even when you include the $118.3 million it scraped together from international markets, the global total barely reached $205.5 million. That figure might seem respectable, until you factor in the jaw-dropping $269.4 million it cost just to produce, without even touching the enormous marketing and distribution expenses. Now let's break down the math. Since theaters typically take around half of box office revenue, Disney's actual cut from that $205.5 million haul is closer to $102 to $110 million, depending on international distribution deals. That's before even factoring in the millions spent on marketing campaigns, red carpet premieres, and Rachel Zegler's now infamous press appearances. When all those additional costs are included, it's clear that Snow White didn't just underperform, it nosedived, with projected losses likely soaring well beyond the $150 million threshold, and the collapse came fast. After an already embarrassing opening weekend, the movie suffered a steep 66% drop in its second week, quickly losing its spot at the top of the box office to Jason Statham's low-key $40 million action flick, A Working Man. From that point on, it was a rapid descent into irrelevance. So what ultimately doomed Snow White? A volatile combination of negative buzz, online backlash, marketing missteps, and a story that failed to strike a chord with audiences. Rather than creating a new age fairy tale, Disney ended up delivering a modern-day cautionary tale, one that industry insiders and film schools alike will likely analyze for years to come. And the post-mortem keeps getting worse. New data shows that Snow White performed even more poorly than early predictions suggested. Back in March, Deadline projected the film might struggle its way to $225 million globally, and eventually rack up $295 million in combined revenue through various post-theatrical channels. That included $11 million from global theatrical rentals, $62 million from home video and digital sales, $130 million from streaming and TV licensing, and $2 million in merchandising. Even with those grim forecasts, the film was expected to lose roughly $115 million after subtracting the total estimated expenses of $410 million, which accounted for its $269.4 million production costs, $111 million in worldwide marketing, and $29 million in other residuals and related expenses. But now, with actual global box office numbers falling short at just $205.5 million, nearly $20 million below projections, the losses run even deeper. Disney is now likely staring down the barrel of a deficit in the range of $125 to $130 million. And since lackluster box office numbers usually lead to weaker sales in home entertainment and streaming rights, that shortfall could grow even further. Meanwhile, the contrast couldn't be more striking than with Disney's other 2025 live-action release, Lilo and Stitch. That film, made on a much more modest $100 million budget, has already soared past $637 million worldwide in just a few weeks. It's not just a hit, it may be Disney's top-grossing release of the year and is already dominating the summer box office conversation. As Snow White quietly fades into the Disney Plus lineup, studio execs are hoping for a streaming redemption arc, some last-minute goodwill from audiences who avoided theaters. But expectations are bleak. Critics already tore the film apart, audiences largely ignored it, and the backlash surrounding Rachel Zegler and Disney's creative decisions turned off many viewers before the film even premiered. Bottom line, with estimated losses now surpassing $130 million, Snow White is destined to be remembered as one of the studio's most high-profile live-action flops. Meanwhile, Lilo and Stitch is shaping up to be the surprise savior of Disney's 2025 lineup. The takeaway? Today's audiences don't want reimagined classics. They want storytelling that honors the original, feels genuine, and emotionally resonates. Lilo and Stitch delivered. Snow White fell flat. As for Rachel Zegler, she continues to be her own worst enemy. Her recent comments leading up to the 2025 Tony Awards suggest that the Snow White disaster and the public relations missteps that defined it are still casting a shadow over her career. After being overlooked for a Best Actress nomination, for her Broadway debut in the Romeo and Juliet revival, Rachel took to social media with a post many perceived as passive-aggressive and laced with bitterness. Although she began her message with praise for her fellow performers, comparing the rigors of stage acting to professional athletics, the tone quickly turned. The line, "I love my job so darn much," struck many as more defensive than heartfelt, particularly when contrasted with the genuinely celebratory reactions from nominees like Sadie Sink and Sarah Snook. But it wasn't just the perceived snub that made headlines. it was Rachel's response to it. Instead of letting her work speak for itself, she once again drew attention for her tone-deaf reaction, coming on the heels of her Snow White fallout, where her dismissive comments about the original 1937 film alienated generations of Disney fans. This latest move did little to repair her image. Broadway, a space steeped in tradition and grace, seemed to clash with Rachel's now familiar pattern of defensive and self-focused messaging. This behavior fits a pattern critics have increasingly called out, from calling the original Snow White weird and outdated to her often flippant red carpet remarks. Zegler has repeatedly stirred controversy when a little humility might have served her better. And now, with her Broadway moment, instead of congratulating her peers and showing grace, she chose to spotlight her own perceived rejection once again. The truth is, Rachel Zegler is undeniably talented, but in industries where image, timing, and tone are as vital as the performance itself, even well-meaning comments can have consequences, especially when they follow major controversies. If she's truly looking to reshape her narrative, the smartest move might be to take a step back. Let the performances speak for themselves. Show up with humility and professionalism. Resist the urge to publicly respond to every disappointment. In the meantime, Broadway will continue to celebrate its stars, and Rachel, for now, remains on the outside looking in at the spotlight she once effortlessly commanded. And now, just when it seemed the drama couldn't escalate further, there's word of a behind-the-scenes clash between Rachel Zegler and Jack Black. According to insider chatter, the two stars allegedly had a tense confrontation following Minecraft's explosive box office success and Snow White's total collapse. That's right. Rumor has it a full-blown verbal spat took place between the pair. And frankly, given the way things have been spiraling for Rachel lately, no one's all that surprised. Here's the tea. Rachel reportedly wasn't thrilled about Minecraft stealing the spotlight, especially while her own film fizzled. Sources claim Jack Black made a not-so-subtle comment implying that Rachel can't handle criticism, a dig referencing her infamous 2023 interview where she clapped back at backlash over Snow White. Apparently, that remark struck a nerve. Witnesses say Rachel appeared visibly shaken, possibly even teary-eyed, and was definitely not amused. Some even claim the incident happened backstage at a press event or promotional appearance. Major awkward energy. This latest episode just adds fuel to the narrative that Rachel struggles with handling public scrutiny. Remember her recent Broadway reaction? After being passed over for a Tony nomination, she immediately took to social media, praising the hard work of theater actors, but the tone felt more like a swipe than sincerity. It read like another passive response to criticism instead of genuine gratitude. And now, with the alleged Jack Black clash, the vibe is similar, defensive, sensitive, and echoing an "I'm tired of the hate" sentiment, but in a way that fails to resonate with fans. While Rachel's film stumbled, Jack's Minecraft is smashing records and gaining momentum as one of the biggest movies of the year. Naturally, fans are picking sides, and Rachel, unfortunately, isn't gaining much sympathy. At the end of the day, this situation reinforces what many already suspect. The entertainment industry is relentless, and not everyone is built to thrive under that kind of pressure. Jack Black, a seasoned pro, clearly knows how to navigate fame with humor and grace. Rachel Zegler is still finding her footing, and if this behind-the-scenes drama is any indication, it could be just another misstep in a string of image woes that are starting to define her Hollywood journey. So what do you think about this whole situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to check out our other videos to stay in the loop with all the hottest Hollywood tea. Until next time, bye!